Welcome to the Music Education Podcast. I'm Chris of the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra, and this podcast is brought to you by Charanga. In this episode, I chat with Nick Abel. Now, my conversation with Nick focuses around music for well-being, and actually, more specifically, it really delves into the idea of working with drones. No, I'm not talking about the things that fly. I'm talking about the things that sound a bit like this. Now, drones are incredibly powerful and immersive things from a well-being perspective for sure, but also they play a really big part in a lot of music from a lot of different cultures and from a lot of different points in history as well. So ancient cultures and including very, very modern musical cultures as well. And Nick is really interesting because he's played with drones in an Indian classical context, accompanying Ravi Shankar and Anushka Shankar. So working within incredibly rich and ancient musical culture, but he also works with it in a very modern music and wellness space as well, and within electronic music. So he's got a really unique and interesting perspective. If you're really interested by the things that we're talking about here, or maybe you want to bring drones in to your own work as a music educator, then within Charanga you can access Mindful Tune-Ups, which is a collection of music and mindfulness exercises. One of those in particular, Listen and Breathe, is a collection of really immersive and quite varied drones, which are absolutely fantastic to use. I really hope you enjoy this episode, and I really hope that you'll stick around for the next episodes too. So please click subscribe or follow so that you can continue to be part of the conversation. Do you mess about with drones a lot? Or do you sort of...
an awful lot, you know, in a lot of different ways as well. Such a vast subject, even though it's just generally two notes or one note. Yeah, I use drones a lot. In my own music, I listen to them a lot. Spent many years with my great teacher, Maestro Ravi Shankar, playing the tanpura, accompanying him and his daughter Anushka in many concerts throughout the world for 10 years. Playing the tanpura, which is the Indian drone instrument. I got involved in ambient music probably 15 years ago, which I'm a huge fan of. And the whole drone scene, if you like. Mm-hmm. And I ended up working with some local musicians in a dance company. We worked on this piece called The Black Sea of Trees. So
Nick, I'm so happy that straight away you've mentioned Indian classical music, because I think it helps bring some context. Obviously, drones have this really important place in music and well-being, music and mindfulness. It's a big part of mindful tune-ups that we were talking about earlier within Charanga, but also drones exist in music from all around the world, right? And particularly in Indian classical, which is really exciting because, I mean, to some extent, I think drones being part of such a rich and ancient musical culture, you know, validates their use for some who need it within the use of drones in well-being and music to make you feel better. Is it fair to say that drones are kind of central to Indian classical music, or the drones are at the centre?
I'm not sure if centre is the right word, but it's definitely something that's present throughout all of that genre of music and that art form. Not sure what it would be without that. In some ways, it's a huge part of it, and in some ways, it's not as well.
Okay. Tell me
because
more.
the tempura isn't an instrument that would be seen as something that you would learn, if you like, and spend years and years and years learning. It's not, it's there's a knack to it, but it's nothing major. The tempura is an accompanying instrument. The tempura is an essential part of that whole art form.
And for those of you who don't know what a tempura drone sounds like, it sounds something like this. And now people all listening to this understand what a tempura drone sounds like. What is in Indian classical? It'd be nice to almost like make the bridge from its use in Indian classical, somewhere that it's been for so long, to its modern day use from a well-being perspective, sort of understanding why it does that. Because it's sometimes, I think, when you're talking to people who aren't using drones or aren't creating music for well-being, then there's no sort of direct justification of drones make you feel happier, they make you feel calmer because it does this. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's nice to link it to that.
Yeah. I suppose the link is, so in Indian classical music, the drone or the tanpura is tuned to usually the root and the fifth, or the root and the fourth, depending on what piece is being played. And my understanding of drones in modern music, if you like, or in electronic music, or in the well-being industry, is that if you think of it on a keyboard, it would still be the root and the fifth generally that you would play. And it just creates a grounding, calming sound. It's repetitive. It doesn't modulate. It doesn't change. It doesn't move to a different note. It doesn't change key or anything. It stays the way that it is. And in terms of the whole wellness thing, and this is something that was so crazy for me personally, because I was in quite a dark place a few years ago, and coming out of COVID and all of that, I was kind of like searching for ways to make myself feel better. And one of the things that I discovered was frequency music. On YouTube, there's thousands of videos of this electronic drone music, but embedded within those are frequencies. Notes that are being played are tuned to a different frequency other than 440 hertz.
Okay.
And these have a whole range of different effects on the human body. Spirituality and spiritualness, is another aspect of it as well, And I got really into this, something that really helped me ground myself again and gave me something to focus on. And I love music, and I love ambient music, so I would spend hours listening to this.
And what did it do for you, Nick? Like, because I want to frame that in a sense of someone listening to that who is you use words that I know immediately. Someone who might sort of I don't know, resistant to some of those ideas. You said spiritual for starters. As soon as we use those words, then I think to a proportion of the population, if you like, that's an immediate like, what are you talking about? So I really
they just switch off, right?
Yeah. But so what is it that you feel and that you gain from listening to that? You saying you were in a really bad place and you listened to that, and what did it sort of actively do for you?
It took a while to get really into it, 4 years on, and I'm still doing it every day. But there's different frequencies, such as 432 hertz, 532 hertz, all of these different frequencies that are coherent, and they create a coherent field. They even create coherent geometry. That's getting into a whole other
Is this when like water and
Yes.
sound? Yeah, okay. So you see that sort of.
So sound affects everything that it passes through, including the human body. We're made up of so much water, our cells, all of that kind of thing. It just made me feel just. It's hard to describe. For me, it was a really profound thing. Not only did it make me feel calm, make me feel at ease, it calmed anxiety. I started to sleep better. My mind functioned better. I just felt better in every kind of a way, which is a very broad, general kind of way to sort of like answer your question.
No, but that's great. You sort of a tangible. It's like in trying to explain this stuff. Those sort of tangible responses to it.
I mean, you can go quite deep into it. In terms of each frequency, the solfeggio frequencies, and how each frequency has its own series of effects or benefits on the human body. I mean, it's a thing that even Nikola Tesla back in the day, was heavily into, and there's a lot of people who are into with it all. There's so many different things within that, such as binaural beats, brainwave entrainment.
Can we talk about the binaural thing as well? Because for me, it was profound in explaining how to tune something. That's two notes, but go on. You explain what it is, Nick. Go
on. It's funny, when I first got into it, I thought I was listening to this music and waiting for like a beat to come in.
It does. Do you want to listen to some binaural beats, mate? They're banging. It's not that.
My understanding of it is there are two different frequencies that are played at the same time, and they create a binaural effect, or however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Which affects the human brain and the human body, and it helps put your brain, and even like I'm talking like on an emotional level, if you're struggling with emotions or you're going through a bit of a bad time or whatever, it can help ease that and comfort you.
And for the listeners, this is what binaural beats sound like. Fantastic. So I love the sensation that it gives you. It's sort of it's not disconcerting. It's like which it should be, because it's sort of something going in and out of tune almost, isn't it? And which turns its head. Go on, sorry.
Those two frequencies that are played in a binaural beat are so close to each other, it creates like a bit of like slight, like a kind of like a dissonance. But after a little while of listening to it, that dissonance becomes very pleasurable. But initially, it's like, whoa. At least to my ear, it is anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you've spent your life trying to make everything exactly in tune, isn't it? So if you're something's like, well, what's going on here? I think for me, it's like a focus. I'm not necessarily focusing on something that you can see in front of you, but it's just the ability to just focus on what you're hearing, I suppose. Which I get from the Indian classical thing. That's what I really. I find so engaging from that, of having that drone just sort of, I don't know, it's like a place to sit, isn't it, almost?
It's a point of focus, yeah. It's a point of focus, and it's somewhere that you could call, like, I don't know, it's a bit like home. Like, it's just somewhere that you are, somewhere that you're present in, and it doesn't waver. Yeah.
So like a tuning in thing, because bringing this into the classroom, something that I'm always fascinated by is a class of children coming in from the corridor, depending on the school, depends on how insane that transition has been. So some have like sort of quiet transitions, and some they might come in from lunch and they're like proper wired. And, there's a sort of a violence amongst them because they've just been in the playground. And then, let's do music. And it's that moment of actually remembering as any kind of music practitioner, and rather than saying educator, because I think it actually relates to performance, doesn't it, as well? Is that time for people to actually dial in and tune in, and the whole sort of drone thing is exactly that, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is.
So when you're doing more sort of therapeutic sort of sessions and workshops, right? Because that's something you're really delving into now, right? For adults, I guess, predominantly, or
Up to this point, yeah, it's been for adults, yeah.
okay. And what's the process that you're going through for music, from a wellness perspective? Like what is it that you sort of offer? What is it that you're trying to do even?
So, I mean, this all links back to being when I was in a bit of a dark place, you know.
Yeah.
And I discovered this frequency music, but actually I rediscovered it because, you know, my great teacher used to tune a sitar of 438 hertz.
Did he?
I never knew why. I should have probably asked that at the time. And would always retune it back to 440 when it would be with, you know, there was a piano there or something like that, you know.
Is it written anywhere why he did that? Maybe just sort of even feeling that as a sense of just feeling actually it just feels slightly more comfortable, just low, because it's an arbitrary standardization, isn't it? Things become sort of standard practice just out of arbitrary administration, right? Because there has to be some kind of let's go with that 440 is the standard, because it means nothing, doesn't it? In our understanding of pitch, we're only understanding the space between, unless we have the curse of perfect pitch, of being able to go, that is a concert A. You know, that's irrelevant. It's just a frequency. So you talking about frequencies in that way, but there still has to be an understanding, doesn't there? But that you're talking about a frequency at that particular point, whereas when we hear instruments, we hear the whole plethora of frequencies, right? So even if I play an A, I see it on my EQ. I'm seeing all of those frequencies coming up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, what do you think, Nick, about listening in day-to-day life? So again, going back to mindful tune-ups, a lot of that is based around field recordings and taking the time to focus on not necessarily natural sounds, because I think immediately people think of field recordings, you know, it can be a cityscape, it can be with the ambience of a place. What do you think about that from a well-being perspective? Actually, just listening in where we are.
Yeah, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that I enjoy listening to myself. There's walkthroughs of this video game called Skyrim, I think it's called. I mean, I don't play
Okay.
video games, and there's a lot of others that are like walking through Hogwarts. There's others
Right.
that's like an old library, and you can hear the rocking chair creaking, and like there's others
Okay.
where there's rain
The
on
sort of
windows.
ASMR element
Yeah,
of it.
ASMR. Yeah,
Okay.
all of that. You know, which ASMR is another element of sound healing, if you like, which I'm massively into, which is also another part of the whole frequency thing. It's kind of all, in my mind, it's all in the same bag. Frequency, binaural beats, ASMR, all of that kind of is all part of the same thing for me. But I have a very similar experience, if you like, when I do listen to that type of thing that you're talking about, you know. Because when you start learning about what it actually does, the whole ASMR thing, tingles and all of that, creates a feeling of comfort.
And why do you
So,
think that is?
do you know what? I've got no idea why it is. That crackly, poppy kind of like, you know, some people are like, I don't like that. It's making me feel like I want to itch myself, you know. For me, it's a lovely thing, and that I'm at this point starting to figure out how to implement that in what I'm doing.
Okay. It's actually just making people feel better, using these sounds to just make people feel, because that's an interesting sort of misstatement, if you like, isn't it, of what music for well-being is trying to do, just making people feel better, because it's far more complicated, isn't it, than just making you feel you're going to come away from it thinking, oh, I'm really happy now. I've listened to some field recordings and then I listened to a drone and everything's okay. But it is more complicated than that, isn't it? I suppose it's like, I don't know.
Deep subject, yeah. It's a deep subject once you start getting into it.
I think, I'm a Radiohead fan, right? Which some people are utterly confused by, because I can be feeling my absolute happiest and I can put on an absolutely like a proper dark, bleak tune, but for somehow that sort of, there's an enjoyment in the you almost like listen to music anyway to feel something, don't you? So maybe this stuff is doing, do you think it's just doing the same thing, as like listening to a sad song when you're sad, or it's just kicking your body into stopping thinking about taxes and insurance, and actually just, not that kids in schools thinking about that, but they might be thinking of a plethora of other young people's worries or concerns, and it's just bringing you to connecting with your feelings in some way?
I suppose in a way, it's a bit like a guided meditation.
Okay.
I always struggled with just sitting in the quiet and trying to meditate in silence. But I really got into it when I started doing guided meditations, because it gives you something to focus on.
Okay.
Which is very much what I think a lot of this, what we're talking about now, can do for people, is they don't have to be into the science of it all and understand all of the effects on the human body and the brain and all of that, It's just the simple thing of like, it's a point of focus, right? It gives you something to focus on that is comforting, relaxing, calming, even sometimes something that's familiar, which can take you away from whatever it is that's over here that you want to get away from.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that doesn't even have to be some kind of terrible situation, does it? That can just, there's just an enjoyment of that. That's a nice place to be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I spend hours listening to it every day.
Do you think this stuff has an effect on a musical ability as well? So leaving the well-being, just improving your sort of state, and you're a musician. So Nick, has this made you a better musician? Has it made you worse? Since listening to drones, I play blum notes all the time.
It's a hard one to answer.
Because I think it must be interesting from your perspective as well, because you're someone who's been playing in an Indian classical realm where you've sort of been dialed in and connected and focused more than most, I could say. So, in some ways it's like, is that possible to build on? But I'd imagine, I'll say, I think I've seen for some musicians that they haven't actually accessed music in the way that they do genuinely focus. They're just going through a process.
Yeah, I suppose what it has done is it's slowed me down. Okay. I love technical virtuosic music, I'm a guitar player as well, and, I'm into Steve Vai, John McLaughlin, all of that stuff, I can play like that, but, I can't write and perform like that. I do it for my own enjoyment. One of the things that drone music, music for wellness, frequency music has given me now is the ability to slow down and just play what comes to my mind without feeling self-conscious about it, without worrying about, is it good enough, without worrying about, has it got this technique in it or whatever. It's just pure music that's kind of coming through. So in a way, it's given me a voice that I feel like in the past I wasn't ready for. I wasn't good enough for, no one would like it, you know, etc. All of these kind of things that probably go through all musicians' minds at some point. It's allowed me to connect with the notes in a much deeper way, which I got from accompanying my great teacher and his daughter all over the world for many years. But that was with them. And once they are gone or I'm at home, I don't have that. So how do I create that for myself? It's something I was never able to do before. But I'm in a place now where I'm able to do that and connect with music on a different level in terms of how I'm playing and performing. If that makes sense. So I suppose in a way, yes, it's made me better because I'm doing things now that I would never have done before, and very content and happy doing it, which is another big aspect of, you know, there's a lot of musicians who critique themselves massively, you know, they're not able to enjoy the process, you know, and all of that, you know. And I'm in a place now of peace with what I'm doing, you know, which is great, you know. I must say, by the way, if I say Ravi's name as in Ravi, everyone knows who Ravi Shankar is, but you know that we wouldn't address him or speak of him in that way. You know, we always use Guruji, or we say Raviji, which is a Indian way of showing respect to an elder or a teacher or a guru. So just for the benefits of the audience, you know, in Indian culture, that would be seen as being really disrespectful just to address him by his name, because, you know, that's just the way that it is. And because I'm a student of his, just wanted to interject that in, you know.
I mean, you said connecting on a different level and deeper connection, which is fantastic to hear. I wrote a little article way back. Well, actually, maybe pretty much spot on a year, actually. The music teacher, and we did a podcast on here. And I was talking about deeper connection and this idea that when we go and see a performance, we expect a musician to be sort of deeply connected with what they're playing. And if they're not, you want your money back, right?
You can spot it a mile off.
Yeah, you can spot it a mile off. And it's like our prerequisite for, that's partly stolen from June Boyce Tillman from the episode that I did around this. But that's our prerequisite for musical performance. It's our baseline expectation for a musician to be deeply connected, like in some kind of transcendental, far out, in the zone. But in music education, anyway, when we talk about it, it immediately sort of comes out, it's so often deeply dismissed. Like, I mean, I've been in very recently a Music Hub board meeting talking about music well-being, and being on the curriculum, and it being argued quite actively by a lot of those members of the board that actually music well-being shouldn't be part of it, because music education is about learning to play. But actually, I think it's almost like that if we get rid of that word well-being, and you're talking about what it did to your musicianship, is it gave you that ability to sort of deeply connect. It's almost surely it's like the most important part of music is to be connected, because if they're not connected, then you're like, well, who is this guy? I don't want to go see him because he's just, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned like it's all about teaching people to play, and of course, there's so many aspects to that. Obviously, you've got technical ability, you've got, you know, there's so many different things, but also the ability to be in a flow state, in a state of calm, in a state of a flow, right?
Yeah. Okay, we can talk about flow state, and that's something
which comes from, feeling well, being well, feeling calm, and all of that sort of thing. Which is a whole other aspect to being able to perform. There's something that you can't learn from someone. I don't think you can read books about it. You can listen to stuff about it, but ultimately, it's like how you feel about your playing in terms of things that are non-technical, in terms of the delivery of how you deliver what it is that you're doing. In my opinion, is a huge aspect to learning how to play.
Okay.
Because a lot of these things, in terms of internally how you're feeling, can override anyone's technical ability on an instrument to be able to deliver the performance. So it's an important aspect.
Nick, can we unpack why you did learning in air quotes for me? Learning to play, because I feel that's almost like the crux of the point. Is what you're sort of saying, about learning to play.
Yeah, learning to play. I mean, it's almost like that phrase needs to have like 50 sub things below it that kind of describe all of the different aspects of what that actually is. Learning to play is just like a huge subject.
But it's absurd in itself, isn't it? In that sort of, I'm thinking about my kids right now are downstairs playing, and I certainly didn't teach them to do that.
It's a tough one. Yeah, I don't really know how to answer that. I'm not really sure what to say. So there you go.
Good. Yeah. Oh man, I'm definitely going to leave that bit in. You're the first podcast guest who I've asked a question who said, actually, I don't really know how to answer that, rather than
I'm just going to say something now anyway. But I don't know. We're talking about things that are, ironically, we're talking about things that are almost impossible to articulate, right? Because you mentioned how a feeling that you have inside can override a technical ability. And in music education, there is so much time spent talking about the things that we can measure, right? There's that famous saying that I'm going to say completely incorrectly. Those all things that can be measured shouldn't necessarily be measured, and those things that can't be measured aren't necessarily not worth measuring. And that's sort of by default, we talk about the things that can be measured, musical, theoretical knowledge, being, the sort of the biggest thing, just some kind of knowledge that can be articulated. Whereas this huge part of music is knowledge that can't be articulated. And I feel it's so linked to this well-being, not only listening to drones, but just that sort of, I think it's that deeper connection word that you're saying that you got from this, that you would get from playing with those two inspirational musicians. But then when you're away from them, it's like harder to sort of tap into that.
Yeah.
Do you think, but doing these things that you're talking about, like listening to drones or listening to sounds, taking time to pay attention and tune into stuff, is a kind of a protocol to getting there?
It certainly worked for me. It worked for me because, I've spent a lot of time doing it, a lot of time, not just 5-10 minutes here or there, like 1-2 hours every day for the last 4 to 5 years.
I mean, well, that's practice, man, isn't it? That's like,
because it's just become a way of life for me. It's a bit like brushing your teeth, It's just like I just do it, I love to do it. But certainly at the start, it didn't take long for effects to start to be seen. It was pretty quick. So I'm not saying to your listeners that, you need to listen to this for 4 to 5 years before you
Fair.
see any effect or anything like that. I'm just saying, for me, it's had such a profound impact on my life. It's something that is a way of life for me now. It's one of those things like brushing your teeth.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thanks so much, Chris.